In this week's chapter of Bleach, the time has finally come, ladies and gentlemen. A moment that Bleach fans have been waiting for since the very beginning of the series. In this week's chapter of Bleach, we finally get to see Kisuke Urahara's Bankai. And to be perfectly honest with you, I did not expect it to be this. It is known as the Guanyin Baraki Benihime Atarami, which roughly translates out to the Inquisition of the Crimson Princess of the Door of Avalokitesvara. It's a little heavy-handed and a little ridiculous to say out loud, but it's actually surprisingly easy to explain. This chapter right here is basically all a build-up to Urahara finally unleashing his Bankai, and it takes him losing his eye in order to activate it for the very first time in a very bloody and very disturbing scene. And this is all because of everybody's favorite Aizen cosplayer, Oskin Naklavar, who frankly, I'm just sick of at this point. I want this guy to just straight up die and be erased from the Bleach universe because he's so annoying, he's so haughty, he's just like Aizen in the sense that he always knows what's going to happen and he's prepared for everything because of his ridiculous trump card, which is his Volständig transformation, which just makes him look ridiculous. I already commented on this in the last chapter, but he just continues to look even more flamboyant and androgynous than usual with his brand new form, which has these weird DNA-looking strand wings, which are able to expand and wrap around his giant gift ball, which is what he actually has Urahara trapped in. And basically, the bulk of this chapter is him just telling Urahara, "You suck, I'm better, prepare to die, but I'm going to take my time in kicking your ass." However, he does do this one attack where he takes one of those DNA strands and kind of turns it into this giant disc. Think of the Destructo Disc from Dragon Ball Z. He actually takes it, throws it right at Urahara, and right before it hits him, it suddenly disappears and then transforms into this small, tiny ring which gets embedded right into Urahara's eye. That panel looks so terrifying and so painful, and then suddenly his eye is just completely destroyed, blood is just erupting from his skull, and that's when Urahara finally realizes no more clowning around, it is time to unleash his Bankai. And in the final panel, you actually get to see it. And it's another humanoid-looking Bankai ability, where apparently he summons this really giant woman who's standing directly behind him, very reminiscent of the Susanoo abilities that you see in the Naruto manga and anime series. I don't know what this thing is going to do, it's a complete mystery, all I know is, it's about damn time. So what's the rundown on this week's chapter of Bleach? This one is going to be completely defined by finally seeing Urahara's Bankai. And you know what? It's actually fitting that it is a humanoid form, being that Urahara himself is a scientist. It's kind of similar to Mayuri Kuratsuchi's Bankai, the Ashisogi Jizo, which also takes the form of a giant humanoid baby. And seeing as how they're both mad scientists, that actually works out. There's also this really great dialogue in this chapter, which comes right before he uses the Bankai, where basically Asuka Naklavar is saying the main reason that he's even working with the Quincy King in the first place is because he wants to see what's going to happen when he gets rid of Soul Society, the real world, and Hueco Mundo. He wants to be a part of this. Whereas, at the same time, you have Urahara who's saying, well, no, this is actually not a good thing. A real scientist wouldn't want to do this. They would want to try and do this with their own hands, just like Mayuri Kuratsuchi. But his words are not getting through to Asuka, and that's when he ends up getting his eyeball ripped out, which I think, aside from the Bankai, is the biggest part of this chapter. It is, without a doubt, the most damage that Urahara has ever sustained from the series, but knowing him, he probably has some, like, secret vial or medicine that he's just going to be able to swallow, which is going to fix his eye. Maybe he has a replacement. He seems like the kind of guy who could actually get away with doing that, and it almost seems like he let himself get hit with that technique, although you can definitely see the shock on his face. It's made even worse by the fact that he's actually fighting in this giant ball, which just completely weakens him, and he can't even move. Like, for the most part of this chapter, he's on his knees, just completely getting his ass handed to him. It's only at the end when you see that Bankai where he finally starts to rise up a little bit, and just, like I said, who knows what this thing is going to do, because Bleach just does whatever the hell it wants. with its big secret techniques, especially the Bankais. It's always really easy with the Shikais because it's always like a blunt weapon, like a sword or a mace or something around those lines. Whenever they get to the Bankai universe, that's when things start to change. It started out real simple, the Ichigo basically just having another version of his sword. When we finally got to Kuratsuchi, that's when things changed. When we started to see these things which could be summoned, the swords literally transforming into other beings with all types of crazy powers. I imagine that just like General Yamamoto, who was killed at the very beginning of this arc, and even Shisui, that he's probably going to have multiple abilities attached to the Bankai. This is probably just like the appetizer to the main course of what he's really going to do. Although, I just hope that Urahara takes this guy out quickly, but it's not going to happen. This is Bleach. This is the way that things go. People slowly reveal their powers and their trump cards before eventually rock beats scissors. So, we're just going to have to wait and see what they're going to do with this. What I will say is, it's just good to finally see this because people have been speculating about Urahara's Bankai for like over a decade. We've all been trying to figure out what it's going to be. There's always been small hints to it. Urahara, for the most part, barely ever even fights in the series. He's always sort of seen as like the mentor of the series, the smart scientist who provides the heroes with the weapons in order to defeat the bad guys. But he's definitely one of the biggest threats to the Quincy army. They've made that very clear throughout all of these arcs, so I really cannot wait to see how destructive or crazy this ability is going to be. Like I said, I don't know if it's just going to be a big woman who transforms into a giant and starts smashing things. I think that's a little boring. We've seen stuff like that in the series before. Maybe it's going to have its very own special weapon. Who knows? What I want to know, though, is what you guys think. If you did read this week's chapter, make sure to tell me what you thought about Urahara's Bankai, and tell me your theories as to what its attack abilities are going to be, or how it's actually going to be able to battle against Askin Naklavar. So, there it is. This was a pretty monumental chapter of Bleach. It's a really important one. It was a little slow, though, and a little too much dialogue for my taste, so I am going to give this week's chapter a 4 out of 5. That being said, it just feels great to finally see Urahara's Bankai. I cannot wait to see the explanation behind it, and we're only going to have to wait another week to see it in action. Unless, of course, they decide to go back to another battle that we haven't seen the end of quite yet. And knowing the author of the series, that's actually a pretty strong possibility. I can actually see him doing that. But I imagine that we probably are going to stay with him because we have been with Askin Naklavar for a little bit. And if I did have only one other minor complaint, it's that Urahara kind of stole Yoruichi's thunder. And no, that's not a pun on anything. It's just, it sucks because I was really ready to see her do something really crazy. If not using the rest of her big transformation, maybe she would actually reveal what her Zanpakuto is in general. She's a character who never uses those abilities. Maybe we'll get to see that as the series goes on. Maybe not. We'll just have to wait and see. But like I said, 4 out of 5 from me. If you read the chapter, make sure to tell me what you thought about it in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching this review. You guys are awesome. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and follow us on social media. Thank you guys again for watching, and as always, stay dandy, baby.